Hey, this is Mike at Premium Crickets. I'm here with Robert Johnson, the breeder of bearded dragons, and then my own bearded dragon, Hoover. We're going to talk about veggies, sort of like the second half of their diet. We've already discussed the worms, and now let's talk about what kind of veggies do you give this fella right here?
This fella is pretty much an adult dragon at this stage. He's an 80% vegetarian now versus protein. This guy here can eat a number of things. There's a large list, but I'll tell you what we use in our breeding facility. We're using mustard greens, which is very high calcium. They tend to always like mustard greens for some reason. We're using kale and we're using squash, we're using carrots. Upon occasion we use collard greens, turnip greens, zucchini. They favor zucchini. A lot of them favor the zucchini over the yellow squash for some reason. But then they'll get their yellows, their greens, their carrots, their vitamin A. They get a good variety of vegetables, especially in the mornings, because they have all day to digest the veggies, which are a little more harder to digest than the proteins. So we feed all our veggies in the morning. We break them up to where basically the same thing as we do the feeders. We'll chop our veggies up about the size between their eyes. So with your littler dragons, yes, we start our babies off with veggies too, even though they're 80% protein eaters and 20% vegetarians.
At what point does it switch?
It switches all throughout their lives. It goes in a percentage.
But he's 9 months right now.
Yeah.
And what percent would you say he is vegetarian
He's
versus
almost
protein?
full grown, so he's probably 60-40.
60-40.
Right now.
So for this fella right here, 9 months old, 60% vegetables, the other 40 crickets, worms, and all the rest.
Yeah, live feeders. We start our babies off early. We chop it up very small for them so they don't have any impaction problems. They can get impacted on vegetables, just like anything else.
And just to, we've already talked about impaction, but that's when the food gets stuck in their intestine and they can't
pass the feces.
They can't pass it out. And we talked about how to help, basically give them a bath every day, every other day, warm water, and that will help with the impaction. You listening to us here?
Yep.
He's listening
He's
every word.
enjoying this. Yep.
Okay.
So veggies, we start our babies off. We've learned that if we start our babies off with veggies very early in their stage of life, they will always eat their veggies. Now, we've had experiences with babies to where we'd start their veggies off later in their life cycle, say 4 weeks to 6 weeks, and they had to basically get used to the idea of eating veggies on top of their proteins. There's no movement in veggies, so if a good idea would be to put veggies in first, basically, and they'll see something different in their cage. And for some reason they like greens more than they like anything else. They'll eat the greens, they'll eat around the squash, the zucchini, and the carrots, and they'll eat their greens first, and then they'll start pecking at the other stuff. But
so you introduce vegetables real early on to them,
yes,
right? And if you don't do that, what happens?
They have to go through a stage of, basically, in my opinion, is what is that? It don't move. It's something new in my cage. Let me go check it out. And it just takes them longer to get acclimated to eating vegetables.
So if somebody buys a bearded dragon from the Robert Johnson collection,
it's already been on vegetables for 3 weeks.
It's already been introduced. It knows, so it's ready to start eating vegetables.
It's already eating vegetables.
Now, are there certain types of vegetables that you just want to stay away from? Well,
I tend to lean more to remembering the vegetables that I actually use, and not. There's a lot of list of poisonous plants out there, and some of the plants, like tomatoes, the leaves are poison, but the tomatoes are good. So there's so many different plants out there that you can't feed your bearded dragons. I can't remember them all. So
what about like spinach, though?
Spinach is a source of a vegetable that I would feed maybe very rarely.
Very rarely.
Basically because of the phosphorus content of spinach.
Okay, so yeah, I know you always tell me stay away from spinach.
Yeah.
Pull that out. So basically, and we have this on the website, mustard greens, collard greens, turnip greens, squash, kale, romaine lettuce. Good blend. Cut it up to where the size of it is basically the distance between the eyes, right? And it starts out as, what'd you say in the beginning, 80% is protein, 20% veggies. It's going to flip around as they become a year or 2 years older.
When they get to be big boys like this guy right here, he'll eat most of his nutrition through supplementation through veggies. He does need the protein.
He'll always need
he'll
protein.
always need live
Right.
feeders for the rest of his life, just not as many.
Not as much.
Plus, he'll eat bigger live prey.
Right.
He'll eat the 3/4, the 10% winged crickets, or the full-grown crickets.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Rob.